Mike Meyers once threatened to quit his own movie rather than give in to studio demands, and it resulted in his most iconic scene ever. Amber Heard has gone nude on film before, but when it came time to go topless for 2018's London Fields, she flat out refused, and consequently was sued by the producers. Based on Martin Amis's 1989 novel of the same name, the film stars Heard as Nicola Six, a clairvoyant femme fatale who predicts she will be killed by one of her 3 lovers. Given that both the script and novel it was based on were, according to the lawsuit, salacious, provocative, and contained nude scenes, producers argued that Heard was well aware she'd be asked to take her clothes off. Producers also argued that Heard didn't just disrupt the production, but also damaged the film's publicity. They alleged that Heard was contractually obligated to attend the premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival, which she didn't, and that she even tried to get the film pulled from TIFF's lineup, which it was. The production company, Nicola Six Limited, sued Heard for $10 million, but later settled out of court. Jim Caviezel became a household name for his role as Jesus Christ in Mel Gibson's 2003 passion project, The Passion of the Christ. Before going biblical, though, he was already well on his way to being the next big blockbuster heartthrob with parts in films like Angel Eyes, where the devout Catholic raised eyebrows when he wouldn't do a love scene with Jennifer Lopez unless she kept her clothes on. He likewise refused to film a love scene with his Monte Cristo co-star Dagmara Dominchik unless she put something between her breasts and his chest. She wound up taking flesh-colored underwear and fashioning pasties from it. Caviezel told The Independent that his commitment to staying clothed is out of respect for his wife and his Catholic faith. If it's embarrassing for people on set, if they think you're a wimp, that you're an embarrassment talking this way, well, I'd rather be embarrassed before the whole country than before God. For a decade, Robert Downey Jr. was the linchpin of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which gave him a lot of power behind the scenes to shape the films he appeared in. One of the times that the actor used this sway was at the end of the 2012 film The Avengers. Having helped stop Loki and prevent the destruction of New York, Iron Man is left tumbling through the sky before crashing into the Hulk. He awakens, surrounded by his fellow heroes, and was initially supposed to say, "What's next?" But Downey Jr. was apparently unhappy with this line and didn't want to film it. Instead, he worked with director Joss Whedon to come up with an alternative. The result was one of the most iconic moments in the MCU.
You ever tried shawarma? There's a shawarma joint about 2 blocks from here. I don't know what it is, but I want to try it.
Released in 2018, the action-adventure film Rampage features Dwayne Johnson as a former Special Forces soldier who befriends an albino ape known as George. As a result of a genetic experiment, George can grow to enormous sizes and is pursued by the US military and members of a gene manipulation company. The unlikely friends ultimately end up having to save Chicago when other animals exposed to the same pathogen wreak havoc in the city. Johnson only had one problem when he first read the script for Rampage, and that was the fact that George died at the end. While the filmmakers tried to placate the actor by arguing that he dies as a hero, sacrificing himself, Johnson was dumbfounded that his ape friend had to die. He outlined his reasoning to Rolling Stone, arguing that people want to come to his movies to see a happy ending. "I don't like a sad ending. Life brings that I don't want it in my movies. When the credits roll, I want to feel great." The disagreement between the actor, his producers, and studio executives lasted some 2 months before they managed to come to a compromise solution that satisfied everyone. Producer Beau Flynn confirmed that Johnson simply refused to back down and was adamant that George should not die. 1994 was a huge year for comedian and actor Jim Carrey. He rocketed to fame thanks to his appearances in 3 hit films: Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and of course, Dumb and Dumber. Directed by Peter Farrelly, the movie sees Carrey portray Lloyd Christmas alongside Jeff Daniels, who plays his best friend Harry Dunn. The 2 slackers and idiots end up traveling across the country as they try to return a briefcase to Mary Swanson, inadvertently becoming involved in a kidnapping plot along the way. Dumb and Dumber ends with the pair beginning the long journey back home to Rhode Island. While walking down a road, a bus filled with bikini-clad women invites them to be oil boys for the group as they tour the U.S. The pair decline, with Lloyd instead pointing them in the direction of the town they just left. However, this was not how the scene was originally intended to play out, with the script initially having the 2 friends get on the bus. Farley explained to The Hollywood Reporter how the studio felt this was necessary, as it provided a happy ending the audience would enjoy. Carrey and Farley disagreed. Committed to the fact that his character was so dumb that he wouldn't seize this opportunity, Carrey refused to film that version of the scene, with Farley reporting that the actor said, "I'm not stepping foot on that bus. I won't do it."
"You'll have to excuse my friend. He's a little slow. The town is back that way."
In 2015's super scary suspense film Sicario, Emily Blunt plays an FBI agent battling drug cartels along the Mexican border. The scene called for Blunt to go topless. While the scene was written in the script, Blunt later told interviewer Howard Stern that when it came time to film, she refused. Blunt was backed up by co-star Benicio del Toro, who agreed that the scene wasn't necessary. Given that del Toro played the film's titular hitman, nobody wanted to mess with him, or with Blunt. The scene was cut. Into the Blue is a 2005 action film that sees Paul Walker and Jessica Alba portray a couple who become embroiled in a massive criminal drug operation when a plane crashes in the sea near their home. It ended up being a commercial and critical failure. One of the perils facing the characters is the risk of sharks. This proved to be a point of contention for Alba, who wasn't prepared to swim with any of the animals during filming. The actor explained that the filmmakers wanted her to swim near a live tiger shark that was behind a cage to provide some extra realism. Fearing for her own safety, Alba fought against the idea and ultimately refused to film the scene with any real live sharks swimming in the same water as her, instead choosing to return to shore. Chris Columbus's 1993 comedy Mrs. Doubtfire easily ranks among Robin Williams' best ever films. The movie follows Williams as Daniel Hillard, who goes through a complicated divorce with his wife Miranda and finds himself unable to see his children as often as he would like. To combat this, Daniel takes on the persona of an elderly woman known as Mrs. Doubtfire, who acts as a housekeeper and nanny, giving the father more time to see his kids. As well as being incredibly funny, the film expertly deals with issues around family separation and abandonment. By the end, Daniel and Miranda come to find a new respect for each other and put in place a plan for joint custody, putting forward the idea that the children should come first. But this message was almost eroded in the original script as it concluded with the separated couple getting back together to make one big happy family. Williams and director Chris Columbus pushed back, believing that this ending was neither realistic nor helpful to younger viewers who might watch it and therefore expect their own parents to get back together. They eventually won the argument, with the filmmakers and studio executives relenting. If you've ever seen any of Sacha Baron Cohen's work, you know the star has zero issues with filming in his birthday suit, or with doing anything in poor taste for that matter. So it's no surprise that he expects the same nonchalance about nudity from his co-stars, but one of his famous female scene partners flat out refused to go nude, despite Borat's badgering. Rebel Wilson is known for her bawdy anything-goes brand of humor. As ribald as Rebel is, she does draw the line when it comes to dropping her drawers. She refuses to go nude and has it written into her contracts that her clothes stay on. In 2016's The Brothers Grimsby, Wilson played the girlfriend of Cohen's screw-up-turned-spy character, and one scene called for full frontal nudity. Despite having a body double, Cohen wanted Wilson to be the one to bear all. Wilson refused, telling Metro, I'm not doing it. I don't care what you say." Will Smith was riding high in the early 1990s with a successful hip-hop career as the Fresh Prince and an even more successful TV show, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But an important transition from sitcoms to serious film roles was 1993's 6 Degrees of Separation. Based on the play of the same name, the movie has a dense, character-driven plot and complicated themes. And while Smith was willing to take risks, the script called for something he refused to do. In the film, Smith's character is required to share a passionate kiss with his male co-star, Anthony Michael Hall. Smith was uncomfortable with this and sought advice from Denzel Washington, who reportedly told him not to kiss a man on camera, so that's precisely what Smith didn't do. The shot was filmed from behind, allowing Smith to fake it. By keeping several degrees of separation from his male co-star, Smith started a pattern of strategically avoiding controversy, until of course the 2022 incident in which Smith slapped Chris Rock on stage at the Oscars. When it comes to being difficult, Mike Meyers has earned mythic status. However, for all of his diva-like demands, a lot of Meyers' stubbornness is actually for the betterment of the movie. Case in point, making Shrek Scottish in the middle of production cost DreamWorks millions of dollars, but was the right call.
I'm an ogre! You know, grab your torch and pitchforks!
But there's no better example of Meyers making artistic demands than this story about the most famous scene in Wayne's World. If you think of Wayne's World, you probably think of Wayne, Garth, and the gang headbanging and lip-syncing to Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. According to Meyers, though, it almost wasn't Queen's masterpiece they sang to, but a Guns N' Roses tune instead. Fortunately, he stuck to his guns and refused to film the scene unless it was Bohemian Rhapsody. He even threatened to walk away from the film. Despite it being his first movie, Meyers got his way, saving the now iconic scene and establishing a reputation that follows him to this day. The Shawshank Redemption is considered a classic, even though it was far from a box office success when it first hit cinema screens in 1994. Based on a 1982 Stephen King novella, the film stars Tim Robbins as a wrongly incarcerated prisoner named Andy Dufresne who develops a strong friendship with Morgan Freeman's convict character Red. The film further cemented Freeman's reputation as a star, but the actor also demonstrated that he was unwilling to compromise on quality. The ending of The Shawshank Redemption sees Andy Dufresne finally escape from prison following a decades-long scheme. Red is later released on parole, and after struggling to live an everyday life outside of his cell, decides to meet up with Andy in Mexico. In the final moments, the two friends see each other on a beach and embrace as the camera pans away. Freeman later revealed that director and writer Frank Darabont wanted a slightly different ending. Speaking to the Daily News, Freeman explained that the script initially had Red blowing Andy's old harmonica before they met on the beach. However, the actor thought this was, quote, sort of asinine, sort of cliched, sort of unnecessary and overkill, and simply refused. Morgan was able to convince Darabont to have a more straightforward and impactful reunion instead. Although there has been a lot of debate about which actor was the best James Bond, Sean Connery consistently ranks highly. Connery was the first actor to play the character on the big screen and set a precedent that all others would be judged by with his effortless portrayal of the British spy. In total, the actor played 007 in 6 films produced by Eon Productions, plus the unofficial Never Say Never Again in 1983. During that time, Connery's character faced numerous challenges and dangers, but one proved too much for the Scottish actor. During filming for Thunderball, Connery was required to go into a pool filled with sharks. Not particularly thrilled with the idea of swimming with sharks, Connery demanded changes to the scene before he got in the water, including the installation of a plexiglass shield to separate him from the live animals. But there wasn't enough plexiglass, which allowed the sharks to reach the actor, who made a swift exit and decided not to get back in the pool. The episode may have also led to his nervousness at having to scuba dive with sharks for Never Say Never Again some years later.
Underwater stuff, I'm not very good at it and was very, very nervous about going under.
Making his first appearance in 1977's The Spy Who Loved Me, Richard Kiel's Jaws is an assassin and henchman who is well known within the criminal underworld. The character was initially intended to be killed during the final moments of the movie, but after test screenings, the producers decided to keep Jaws alive due to his popularity. That led to Jaws appearing in the next entry in the series, 1979's Moonraker. This time around, he was more of a comedic foil than a relentless killer, although he does pose a serious threat to Bond before he's reformed. Eventually, Jaws fights against supervillain Hugo Drax and works with Bond, largely as a result of his relationship with new girlfriend Dolly. In an original draft of the script, Jaws' love interest would have been a hulking woman even taller than the 7'2" character portrayed by Kiel. But Kiel didn't like this idea and threatened to quit the production. In the book Some Kind of Hero, the remarkable story of the James Bond films, Kiel explained, "I felt strongly that what they had in mind wouldn't work for me or the audience."
How about a short girl? I said, how short? I said, well, at least 5 feet.
Like several of the main cast of the Fast and Furious franchise, Michelle Rodriguez has been a constant throughout a series that now numbers in the double figures in terms of theatrical releases. The actor plays Letty Ortiz, a skilled street racer and mechanic who operates as part of Dominic Toretto's crew. In the very first movie, it's established that Letty and Dom are involved in a romantic relationship, something that has continued in subsequent films. But that might not have been the case if Rodriguez hadn't argued against the storyline in The Fast and the Furious that would have seen Letty cheating on Dom with Paul Walker's character Brian O'Connor. Unwilling to be perceived as a cheater and believing that these events would not have been believable to audiences, she fought against the love triangle idea. The actor went to the filmmakers and demanded that the scenes be removed from the script before filming took place, threatening to quit the project altogether if they insisted on keeping them. Fortunately, Diesel felt similarly and backed up his co-star, helping to convince those in charge to drop the arc and keep the relationship between Dom and Letty strong. The James Bond franchise seems to have a penchant for including scenes that actors find uncomfortable. The most recent example of this came about in 2015's Spectre, which saw Ralph Fiennes continue in the role of M following the death of the previous incarnation of the character portrayed by Judi Dench. Fiennes revealed on the Happy Sad Confused podcast that director Sam Mendes initially wanted the film to reveal that M was in fact the criminal mastermind known as Blofeld. Fiennes recalled telling the director, "I don't want to play M and then you turn around and make him the bad guy. M is never the bad guy."
So there's a set of boxes that are ticked, which the fan base expects and wants.
This led to what the actor described as pretty intense discussions with the director before the pair agreed that M wouldn't be revealed as the overarching antagonist. Denzel Washington is one of the most celebrated actors of modern times. Not only has he appeared in some of the most successful films in recent history, winning numerous high-profile awards in the process, but he's also a producer and director with a lot of power and influence in Hollywood. So if Washington doesn't want to do a scene, the chances are that no one is going to be able to force him to do it. That was definitely the case for the 1993 legal thriller The Pelican Brief, where he co-stars with Julia Roberts as the two attempt to uncover the real motives behind a series of assassinations at the top of U.S. politics. The two characters develop a close relationship during the course of the story, leading to questions about why they never kiss on screen or seemingly develop a romance despite the indications. Roberts told Newsweek in 2002 that it was Washington's idea, not hers, to have the scenes removed from the script. Washington explained that after backlash from black audience members over a kiss shown in a test screening of 1989's The Mighty Quinn, he decided to avoid such scenes in the future in order to keep from alienating his biggest fan. Air Force One is a 1997 action thriller that stars Harrison Ford as President James Marshall, who is aboard the presidential aircraft when it is hijacked by a terrorist group. The movie also features Glenn Close as Vice President Catherine Bennett, who leads the response to the hijacking on the ground from the White House. Ensuring that the vice president was a strong female leader who would inspire others around her and take charge was evidently important to Close, with the actor going so far as to refuse to shoot a scene that compromised this vision. Close revealed to Vanity Fair that the script called for a scene where the character would break down and cry due to the overwhelming nature of the situation. Close balked at the idea and spoke out to the filmmakers, making it clear that she wouldn't film such a scene, though she did allow a single tear to fall. She explained, "I said, I will not do that. I don't think that would happen. Not my vice president. My vice president would step up to the challenge."
I'm here to assure the American people that we are doing everything we can to resolve the situation.
Your Highness is a 2011 stoner comedy that stars Danny McBride and James Franco as two medieval princes determined to kill an evil sorcerer who is holding a princess hostage and thus save the kingdom from his machinations. Filled with the same kind of humor that made films like Pineapple Express such hits, it's exactly the type of film you'd never expect to see Natalie Portman in. But according to McBride, Portman was more than willing to embrace the filthy jokes and join in on the fun. He told Cinema Blend, "On the set, she never shied away from that stuff. I mean, she can definitely hang with the boys. She wasn't intimidated by any of the foul stuff going on." Yet there was one thing that Portman was unwilling to do. At one point in the movie, her character Isabel jumps into a lake nearly naked. Portman flat out refused to do that scene, but only because of how cold the water was, prompting a body double to step in for her. Portman told the Daily Star, "There was one shot that's me, and the shot of her diving into the water is a body double, because I didn't want to go in the water. It was really, really cold." Over the course of the last 30 years, Ben Affleck has established himself as one of the biggest leading men in Hollywood, and one of his most celebrated performances came in David Fincher's 2014 film Gone Girl, starring opposite Rosamund Pike. During one scene, Fincher wanted Affleck's character Nick Dunn to wear a New York Yankees baseball cap as part of his attempts to travel unnoticed through an airport. But the actor, who comes from Massachusetts and is well known as a huge fan of the Boston Red Sox, couldn't bring himself to wear the hat of such a hated rival. Affleck recalled to the New York Times how he told Fincher he wouldn't film the scene if he had to put on the cap, saying, "David, I love you. I would do anything for you, but I will not wear a Yankees hat. I just can't. I can't wear it because it's going to become a thing." Fincher later confirmed the story in the Gone Girl DVD commentary, saying perhaps jokingly that the argument led to the film halting production before they compromised on a Mets hat. "I really wanted it to be a Yankees cap, but being from Boston and not being very professional as an actor, Ben refused to wear a Yankees cap. I mean, it did not come to blows, but we had to shut down production for 4 days." Warner Brothers has been playing catch-up with Marvel Studios for some time now and has never quite managed to capture the same level of success. 2017's Justice League was the first ensemble superhero film in the DC Extended Universe and a chance for the franchise to really kick into gear. But things didn't quite work out that way, and there were numerous issues with the film, many arising from the fact that director Zack Snyder was replaced by Joss Whedon during post-production for extensive reshoots. One of the scenes that Whedon decided to include in his version of the movie was a moment when the Flash, played by Ezra Miller, falls on Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. What was intended to be a comedy moment ended up being slightly creepy, something that Gadot was quite aware of at the time. According to online rumors, Gadot refused to film the scene as she felt it was sexualizing her character unnecessarily and didn't fit in with the rest of the movie's content and theme. Instead, the scene was supposedly filmed using a stunt double, something unfortunately not true of the film's other iffy scenes.
Oof. You're gorgeous and fierce and strong and
Keanu Reeves has had one of the most varied careers in Hollywood. Long before John Wick or The Matrix, though, he was cast in the horror film Bram Stoker's Dracula, alongside Gary Oldman, Anthony Hopkins, and Winona Ryder. Released in 1992, it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, with Reeves taking on the role of solicitor Jonathan Harker and Ryder his fiancée, Mina Murray. At one point during filming, the legendary director took an unusual and unwelcome approach to try and get Ryder to cry convincingly on screen. From behind the camera, he began to shout expletives at the actor, calling her a whore repeatedly. When he tried to have the rest of the cast do the same in an attempt to force Ryder to cry, Reeves and Hopkins both refused to take part. This sparked a close friendship between Ryder and Reeves that has lasted for several decades. Ryder told the Sunday Times, "Literally, Richard E. Grant, Anthony Hopkins, Keanu. Francis was trying to get all of them to yell things that would make me cry, but Keanu wouldn't, Anthony wouldn't. It just didn't work. I was like, really? I kinda did the opposite."